Welcome back. You are watching Hope at Dawn, and my name is Beatrice Watare. And of course, Gigi, George Gishuru, is with me. Now, later on, he will be telling us about the topic of the day and also the guest that is also in studio. But before that, maybe we can take a look at the video that we just saw.
Yeah.
This song, Faithful by Moses Bliss.
Yeah.
You know, at first, I had not seen the original video, nilikuwa tu nimeona the live one. But then the video itself, it begins off with a lady about to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And this lady, she's about to commit suicide because of the frustrations of life, because of what she's gone through, because, you know, the husband, tena alifariki, and then we see the daughter who is in hospital, and we are seeing a very deep case, and she has lost hope. She's hopeless.
Yeah.
But then just about the time she's about to kill herself, someone sends a message, and that message is an audio. And then we usher in the song of Moses Bliss, Too Faithful. And I think two things really popped out for me in this video. The first one is that we need to always check on our friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because sometimes you may never know what they're going through. And if maybe God has given you an inspiration to share a certain video, to share a certain sermon, to share a particular verse, take that opportunity and do it, because you never know what life you could be saving by just doing that little act of kindness. And also the other thing is to remember never to lose hope, because sometimes when we lose hope, it's a very dangerous downhill. It's like you're now going down. It's like you're in this cage. And there's this movie named The Pilgrim's Progress. There's a particular place whereby this guy, he's old and he's wrinkled and he's in this cage. And then someone comes and opens the cage, but then he still can't come out. You see?
Yeah.
So, kuna ile level ya hopelessness unaweza fika, in a way, even if there's a ray of light shining before you, even when there are so many blessings that you can choose to focus on, you choose to be in that cage. It's almost like it's not even about opening that door, because the cage is within you.
Yeah.
So in whatever thing you're going through, seek help. Ask someone to come through for you. Go to a therapist, go to a counselor, talk to a friend, a parent. It could even be a pastor. Just don't stay in this despondency and stay in this hopelessness and cage your own self, because God has already opened the way. By Jesus dying on the cross, he opened the way for every difficulty, every curse, everything that can hold you back to be broken off of you. And Too Faithful by Moses Bliss reminds us that in every situation, even if we do not perceive God, he's always there, because he's always faithful 24/7.
Yes.
We may fail in faithfulness, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be faithful just because you failed. So you can always go to him in humility and tell him, you know what, God, I need you. I need you in this season. I feel broken. And then shift your focus and choose to look at the blessings that you already have. That was the video of the day today.
Too
and
faithful.
I do hope tumejifunza jambo moja mbili tatu.
Tumejifunza mawili matatu on the same.
Yes.
And I love it that he's too faithful to fail us. He cannot fail us. Thank you for the video of the day. Big Monday. Of course, we have been telling you that on Mondays, we'll be tackling matters to do with law. Legal matters is what we'll be addressing every other Monday on Hope at Dawn, right here on Hope TV. And today is no exception. And today we are looking at the topic, I actually started hearing of the same recently when we started having the issue to do with content production.
Right.
So you have content producers, you have people posting their materials online on, you know, subscribe down below, you know.
So my YouTube channel.
My YouTube channel, yeah. So that is where we have now started getting the discussion around intellectual property. And that is what we are looking at this morning, intellectual property rights in the country. And we'll be looking at the different intellectual property rights that we have. And also our friend in studio will be helping us in knowing how you are able to ensure that those rights are well observed in as far as, what is it called? Not legalizing, but registering
Right.
the process of ensuring that those rights are well observed. So without much ado, why don't we welcome our guest in studio this morning, lawyer Clive. He's joining us this morning, and welcome, sir. It's a good morning.
It's a pleasure joining Hope FM.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is Hope TV, actually.
Hope TV,
Yeah.
yes.
It's a pleasure joining you to address this issue. It's quite an interesting issue.
Yeah.
I would call it a topical, an upcoming issue, a contemporary issue in the society that requires, our education system does not go out there to address this issue. It does not, by the time students are leaving school, they're coming out hopeless because there are no jobs, and so they go into things like content creation. The moment they get out there, they do not know the legal framework around that area. And so many of them end up infringing on others' rights, and therefore, you find you done a song, and you didn't know that the song had a tune borrowed from somewhere, and then you have infringed on someone's right. And if someone took a legal measure against you, it becomes very terrible for you because it leads you, many miles backwards. My name is Clive. I work with Agimbe and Associates Advocates. I'm a lawyer. It's a pleasure being with you this morning.
Welcome.
Asante.
All right, beautiful. And I think maybe we can start with the very first thing. First things first, let us get the definition of intellectual property. And while you're at that, maybe you can also tell us about the different types of intellectual property rights.
Okay, now, because we are on Hope TV, I want to start from the I want to start from the Bible perspective.
Yes.
You've heard about this parable about the talent.
Yes.
And one was given this, the other was given that, and another one. How do you use them?
Yes.
Now, that was then. But later, you will find that we come to speak about the fruits of the Holy Spirit, the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and again, people are gifted differently. Now, when you come out here, you find that an intellectual property is something that comes from, the mind. It's a creation of one's mind, and it is intended for purposes of, could be education, could be, before you call it an intellectual property, you must be intending to make, some commercial, it must be some commercial value to you. So the different types of intellectual properties are trademarks, for example. Now, I don't know if you'd want me to break them down first before I proceed to just name them. Now, trademarks usually protect logos and sometimes names of, establishments that somebody has come up with. And trademarks are protected by the Kenya Intellectual Property Institute. It's based along Wayaki Way. It's, we abbreviate it to KIPI. We have things like patents. It's another intellectual property. Patents usually about inventions. And it's also protected by the same. Then we have geographical indications. These ones speak about, some things belonging to a particular area in society. For instance, when you're talking about the Kikoi, Kikoi is just, something that if you speak about Kikoi, you're looking at the Kenyan coast. When you're speaking about the Masai Shuka, you're looking at the, it's just unique to the Masai. So it becomes a geographical indication. If you want to see that, you travel to Kenya. You travel to, if Masai is, then you can also go to, Tanzania. The Luyas with the Isukuti, when you want to look at sometimes types of foods, those are geographical indications. There are trade secrets. Trade secrets are not very commonly known in Kenya, and we may not have a legal framework to protect trade secrets in Kenya. However, the legal fraternity has found a way of dealing with that. They go all the way to creating things we call non-disclosure agreements, whereby if you have a secret and you want to deal with someone, then you create an agreement you call a non-disclosure, so that they're not disclosing it to any other person out there. It becomes just a secret between the two of you. The advantage of having a non-disclosure agreement is that you will not, if somebody went to disclose, then they're in breach of contract, and therefore you can hold them liable for that purposes through damages on breach.
Right. And maybe someone is watching this morning and they are asking themselves, how then am I able to legally protect their intellectual property?
Now, Kenya is such a blessed country. I think we have one of the most beautiful constitutions around. Now, our constitution under Article 2, Sub-Article 5, allows the international, laws, and even Article 2, 5, and 2, 6, and, some laws that have been ratified by Kenya, international law, to come and form part of our laws.
Okay.
So Kenya is a member of what we call WIPO. WIPO is the World Intellectual Property Organization. In Africa, we have what we call ARIPO, the African, it's called the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization. Now, these two are actually, like, let me call them, they are conventions, and they have been ratified in Kenya. So Kenya is a member state. Yes. And on that basis, it brings into our law, a very sumptuous ingredient on how to protect your rights. Yeah. Now, Kenya has moved forward and has created what we call the Kenya Industrial Property, Kenya Intellectual Property Act, which brought into being the KIPI, what I had already mentioned, that Wayaki. Yes. Then we also have something called KEKOBO. KEKOBO in full is a Kenya Copyright Board. Now this one has to deal, KEKOBO deals with copyrights, whereas KIPI deals with patents and trademarks. Copyright, if you have a copyright, the best way to protect it is, first of all, it's not mandatory that you protect it, but it is recommended that you protect it. If you protect it, then the benefits are very, it protects you from having it taken away by a person for their own commercial use. For example, recently, what you've seen, the famous statements, Mambo ni Matatu. Yes. I know everyone must have heard about that. And we must have heard that the president, our president actually went ahead and, copyrighted that. Yeah. So that if you were to use it, you have to. Yeah.
But there was some legal arguments, especially now that you have brought that one up, that being the head of state, he belongs to the state. So whatever he says in his capacity as the president, he cannot use it for individual benefits.
Now, that can take us in much waters. I know. The first thing I want to mention is that much as the Constitution has, the Supreme Court has spoken about that, we shouldn't forget that the president is a state asset. I would call it property if you wish. But he's also a private person. At some point, he enjoys, rights just like every individual. Article 27 of the Constitution speaks against discrimination. So if I allowed you the right to protect your, what you feel is yours, it is not, in exclusion of the president. So he enjoys those rights as well. Okay. But then, again, as you say that, I know where he's heading with that, much as that is more for politics, because he may want to use that later for his own benefit during the next campaigns. Be that as it may, he has those rights. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe some people are asking themselves, so what will be legally termed as intellectual property infringement?
Now, infringement, it can be, actually it's very wide. Okay. The data we have says that in Kenya alone, counterfeits, which include that copyright infringement and so on, makes Kenya lose up to $300 annually, just on counterfeits. Now, copywriting, for example, if infringed upon, allows someone to come and benefit where they did not sow. They reap, they take home. You can imagine you've done your song and it's being reproduced somewhere in River Road. It's not just unique to songs. Currently, if you go to the bookshops down there, you find that the books that are being sold there are not from the actual person that wrote them, or the authors or the publishers. People are reprinting these books in the back streets. Now, you can imagine that those books are sold cheaply.
Yeah.
And looking at the state of the economy, those are the people that are likely to benefit more than the actual person that had the idea, put it down or put it into a song.
Yeah.
Now, that explains why we ask the question, why is it that Kenyan artists, for example, musicians, end up being very poor? Some of them have died poor. Some of them have ended up, seeking that why can't government do this? When they're sick, you see somebody coming up with a pay bill. That shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
And you don't see this in some other civilizations. Not to say that ours is not a civilization, it is. But other civilizations have protected that area to the extent, like if you looked at a civilization like the United States, it is a very, very serious crime to end up doing, infringing on copyright. Here, there are a lot of measures that are being taken through law. Sometimes it's only that enforcement that lacks. But we have a lot of laws that have come up and are punishing that. Now, if you infringe on copyright, you face these difficulties. One, if you are a company that you are in trade, we know of the most vicious one was about some leading mobile phone service providers who had a very contracted battle about copyright, and it also had something to do with competition, fairness in business, unfair business competition. Then we had another one about margarines again, some contracted battle. So you can see that much as these ones may not have ended up into providing damages from the legal, from the justice system, where that gets you, it can be very dire. It can also lead to damages. You may pay damages. You may lose that. If you had copyrighted someone's name, or you're using someone's name too. By the way, it's very interesting that when you walk on the streets, even here in Nairobi, you would find someone selling Nivea for 100 shillings on the streets, the roll-ons. And you get surprised, how did this person end up here? And you see, one, I'm sure that is not a product of, but they're using that name. And whatever they're selling, they're making an income. To the detriment of Nivea, So you can actually be imprisoned if you do not pay fines. It borders from criminal to a civil matter.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I have also seen some, and this one is especially on music.
Yes.
Let me use music and the content producers. So you find George here. I have produced a conversation, but the background music that I'm using is not mine. So where does that lie? And I have seen of late saying music. So I put music courtesy. So does that shield me against any legal redress from the owners, the real owners of the music?
I look at that on two fronts. Where you use someone's, there's a limited allowance, that where you're using that for education purposes or for non-commercial benefits, then you are allowed limited use of someone's copyrighted works of art. However, that disclaimer, putting there the disclaimer that the music is not mine, but you end up having some commercial benefit out of that, is not enough. And somebody could still claim. I know of someone who reached out and asked me a question that why have they pulled down my YouTube, that kind of a thing. And I told them that the song you were using was not yours, and they did not know that using someone's song is an infringement on copyright.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Interesting. And maybe it could be that maybe someone has had this scenario whereby the intellectual property has been infringed. So what are the legal steps that they can take to getting that back or claiming their ownership back?
Now, first of all, if you have not protected that, how do you claim? Because there is something we call in law the doctrine of equity. And what the law does is to protect those who do not sleep on their rights. If you sleep on your right, you cannot come to claim. For example, there was a time I think Kenya had a few years back.
Yeah.
The Kikuyu was being, you know, the intellectual properties on Kikuyu was somehow being, you know, protected in another country. Was it Japan or somewhere there? Yet it belongs here. But we were sleeping on that,
Yes.
right? I think that.
Yeah.
So what you're supposed to do as an artist, what you're supposed to do as an author, what you're supposed to do as a manufacturer, as a trader, if you have a name, even owners of schools, forget this very important thing. Yeah. You have seen schools that have names that sometimes you have, oh, so this school does not, is not part of that. And so the first thing you're supposed to do is to protect. Once you've protected, if someone went and, you know, used your name, your logo, then you can move to court. You can actually let them understand by doing what we call a deceased, it's a letter kind of warning them not to carry on using it. Yeah, so that if you did, then if you continued, then you are supposed to pay damages if those people approached courts.
And I think you have answered a question that someone is asking about maybe I feel they're in the printing business.
Yes.
And so what about someone who prints T-shirts and hoodies? Would I need to copyright my images and my quotes?
If they're yours. If you're printing someone's name on a T-shirt, that is not your thing. We protect what we have invented, what we have thought about, our the ideas we put into, you know, something we call, we have done securization, which means that you have put them, you have put some commercial value in it, and you have put in some your own. It is your own. You're not just taking someone's name and printing
or
something.
A famous quote
or
a
that's
Bible
not
verse.
yours.
You can't.
That is not yours. You can't copyright that. But if you have a company that is doing that printing, then you can protect that name. You can protect the logo and so on. But not taking my image and putting on a T-shirt and going to copyright that. That is not yours.
This is Hope at Dawn, and this is the Legal Matters Monday. We are discussing everything in as far as legal matters are concerned. And this morning we are looking at the intellectual property rights. And you can send in your questions to our lawyer friend Clive, and he is willing to answer all those questions. 20933, that is the SMS line. Get us on WhatsApp as well, 0708222323, and you send in those questions and we'll be asking Clive to answer them. And I know it's a vast field, but what are some of the charges or some of the consequences in case there is infringement of intellectual property?
Now, the charges, now the first thing I know is that if, just like I said initially, you have to protect it. It must be a protected thing. You cannot go to court for what you have not protected, because then you have no right. Somebody can bring a civil matter on you, and I gave you some businesses that have come up with that. I remember recently of a university that went and used, you know, and this is very common, especially schools and institutions. We have performed very well. You can take images of students, so your students, and use them for a commercial, but you have not, you know, sought
consent from the pupils or guardian.
Although that flies into data protection, but you can also see that the fact that we are using them ought to have, you ought to have had that consent. Now, the most important thing is to realize that somebody can walk to court actually and charge you on that. Now, this mainly civil. However, we must understand that for copyrights, we have a board. This board is the first one you approach. As a person that, as the innocent person, you approach this board, and it will give a decision. If you're not satisfied that, or if the party you have taken to the board is not satisfied, then you can always move to the higher courts for other determinations. And it can range to one, losing the name. You may also be asked to wind up a business that is actually, you know, making benefits out of others' sweat.
Yeah.
It could lead to, you know, commercial detriment, for corporate detriment. And, you know, people are very keen in protecting their corporate images. So that is one thing that you must be sure. And that is why we always recommend, like I said, for copyright. It's not necessary, but we recommend that you copyright your thing so that when this happens, you have a redress from, you know, the legal system.
And maybe, Bwana Clive, you can let us know, what would you say are some of the challenges that are associated with the intellectual property?
There are many challenges. The biggest challenge in this area is actually goes in copywriting, as opposed to trademarks and patents. Now, the biggest challenge is piracy. Is one of the biggest one. And piracy actually is a booming business, untaxed. And you can see the impact it has on even the economy. That you remember the amount I mentioned?
Yes.
About 300 in USD, not Kenya, but 300 million. You can see if we tapped that into the tax bracket, so that we have not a lot of money is being wasted out there that could have made, you know, a person that came up with the idea, the publisher that is remitting taxes on time, make their income. And also the government to get their taxes from there. So there is a whole black market out there. Piracy is the biggest. Now, much as we have piracy as the biggest problem, again, you'll find that we are not doing enough with the enforcements that we have. I wouldn't want to speak about the legal framework because we have sufficient legal frameworks, but they're not just being enforced. So the enforcement bit is also a problem. Why? Because we have not brought out this to look as criminal as it is. That you can go and take someone's song and, you know, recreate it. The tune remains the same. But out there, you know, you get, wherever you pass, you get people cheering you for, yet it's not your work. So at the end of the day, someone is losing, the government is losing, but someone is making a profit untaxed. That is the danger.
All right. How long does... do we have an expiry date in as far as intellectual property rights are concerned?
I'll speak about copyrights. For literary works, literary things like poem, spoken or written, authorship, writing of books and so on. And there is music, people in theater. Your work is protected during your lifetime and 50 years afterwards. So it lapses, like the late Chinua Achebe, at the end of the 50th year after his demise, then his work is open.
Interesting.
For film, cinema, this one will last for 50 years from the time of publishing.
All right. And maybe what is the legal process of selling the intellectual property rights?
Now, I would say something here, that legally and locally, when I say local, I mean in Kenya, we have not done enough to sensitize people about selling property rights. And I remember there is a music group during the politics of last year that had their song being used for, you know, given reasons. And they came out and, you know, raised a voice. And the public was not so happy about them, forgetting that it is their right. That is their right. It is their song. It is the idea. Be that as it may, what we understand is that once you have put your work into protection and you want to follow up with the process of registration, if I get your question, sorry again.
The legal processes of...
the legal of...
If maybe you'd love to sell.
Oh, you wanted to sell. Now, the first thing that you must do is to put a commercial value on them. Others call it securitization, so that they have a value. And I was saying that in Kenya, we have not done enough.
Yeah.
And people have this, and people don't even know that this can be something that you can pass on to your children as a gift through estate planning, or what we call a will or trust. There are a lot of benefits to it. So how do you do it? First of all, let it have some value. Once you have a value on it, you can then go to, you can then use it for purposes of gaining royalties. Okay. That means that if someone wanted to use my song, if someone wanted to use my idea or part of my book into some place, they have to buy those rights. And when they buy, then you get what we call royalties. Royalties are subject to tax. And you can see if you have not copyrighted, then if somebody is using that, then government is losing, you're losing. And I think it's a place that we need to really ask government to do something, so that there's a lot of tax that goes wasted around that area, instead of pinning these tax on just a few people. Then, once you've done that, you can actually access, and I've seen this happen in other civilizations like the US, using your copyrights, you can access credit. You can go to the bank and get a loan using a copyrighted, because you have put a value on it. And you know, if banks wanted what we call a security, then they look at the value of, you know, how it's been valued, and you can get, you can access credit, let's just say that,
In studio, we are hosting lawyer Clive, and we are talking about intellectual property rights. You can send in your questions to 0933 and also on WhatsApp 0708 222 323. It's the Legal Matters Monday. We take a short commercial break. We'll be back after this.
Je, ushawahi kuweka jambo kwenye mizani? Ushawahi kupata uzito wake? Haya basi, usitapetape zaidi. Naomba unigande, maana mizani ipo hapa kwa ajili yako.
Vyakula na mbegu za kitamaduni,
na kutuliza fikra na kukuwezesha kupima masuala ibuka katika jamii, tena kwa busara. Tukutane mizani kila Ijumaa saa 1 machweo kwenye runinga ya Hope TV.
It's Legal Matters Monday, and we are having such an awesome and intense conversation on intellectual property. And with us is lawyer Clive, who is really giving us all the details that we need to know and understand about intellectual property. So you can definitely send in your questions. We received a bunch of them to 0708 222 323, and we will be answering that right here. Welcome back.
Right, and Helen from Nakuru is welcoming us back with on a light note. She says, "Morning Hope TV. I wanted to congratulate the guest's mother for giving him such a name. I've never heard of it yet."
Thank you.
Wacha nisionge. Let me just
Usionge. So thank you, Helen, and thank you for tuning in this morning. And Clive, welcome back. I think we were asking ourselves the question to do with the non-disclosure agreement.
Yes.
And if you can elaborate to us on NDA.
Now, people have come out and cried that the idea you are seeing these people run away, use, was initially born by myself. And I went and visited these people, I presented my idea, and they refused to buy it. So what happened is that now I'm seeing the same idea being used for their commercial, benefits.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how to protect this idea when they first approached the people in question.
Yeah.
So what you're supposed to do, when you know you have such a great idea and you want to sell it to a corporate, you want to sell it to a bank, you want to sell it to an institution, and you think that if I give out this idea and it is not bought, somebody can still run away with it.
Yeah.
Usually you have two fronts here. One, you can first of all protect that idea and then go and sell it for purposes of royalties before you get to them. The other one is, if you have not protected, actually it's not the idea, but you protect if it's an invention or an authorship, because again, protection of an idea is not known to our law per se.
Yeah.
So once you've done that, you can also take whatever you have authored and then enter into an non-disclosure agreement. An non-disclosure agreement stops the other party. Actually, it's just a contract. It's just an agreement.
Okay.
And it has terms, which terms are conditions, warranties, and all those things that would be in a contract. Now, it is how you word your contract, your agreement, that will protect you and another person from running away with that idea. So what would you do in that case? Make sure it is worded, and that's why it is very important that you visit a lawyer to help you with the agreement.
Yeah.
It is worded very well. The clauses protect you and from someone running away with that idea and running away with that issue and going to make an income out of that. So non-disclosure agreements can also be breached, just like any agreement.
Yeah.
In case somebody takes that concept, takes that authorship, takes that music, and they go and use for their own benefits. If the non-disclosure agreement had, created breach, had created the terms of breach, you can actually use them, exploit them, and have them rescind that, or account for profits, and or pay you in damages. Yeah.
Oh, all right. And is it legal to have two businesses registered maybe under the same trademark?
Let me assume, and I hope you don't mind me using this for education purposes, and therefore Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
If you look at how Coca-Cola behaves, is that it has trademarked Fanta, Sprite, and and it always indicates the registered trademark. Now, all these are products of one company, but it has decided to trademark them differently.
Yeah.
Now, what I would say on that, if you are that very person, it is okay that you can have two businesses, but if they're registered differently, again, it all goes on how you have incorporated them. If you have incorporated them differently, then it is reasonable that you trademark them differently.
Yeah.
But if they're under the same production, or it's a holding company and it has subsidiaries, the subsidiaries can operate under the trademark of the holding company. There's no problem with that, especially if they're in the same chain of production. Then you can just have them do under the same umbrella. But if they're doing things differently, or different things, or different products, it is reasonable and recommended that you trademark them differently.
Before we come to persons who want to start businesses or companies, I'm interested in the area of content creation, because it's becoming such a big industry, to the point now, especially the digital space, to the point now taxation has now been introduced into the same. So how can one be able to navigate that space without breaching intellectual property rights of others? And also, so that's one. Two, how are you able to protect your own rights?
Now I'll start here. I'll start by, it's not very good to always complain, but I would give government some space to look at. First of all, we need to reevaluate our education system, and I think this is going on, so that it is value-based. It is not enough to pass exams. You need life skills. Life skills are what you're going to run on these streets with. Exams, we all have papers. So the most important thing is that as you come out here, have you left school understanding where you're going? And you see that we encourage those talents at school, and we allow students to, do those things, and they step out, they get the streets, and they have a chance to start being content creators.
Yeah.
I know of one that just came from Form 4, and the world had already accepted her.
Yeah.
Not to mention names, but you see, if she had, did she understand that then how, what are the tools of my trade?
Yeah.
It includes musics produced by
Yeah.
other people. So what am I supposed to do? First of all, reach out to the owners of that music to give you permissions to do so.
Yeah.
If not, if you want to protect your own work, just start by searching to understand if these things have been protected. The music that you want to use, has it been protected? Then reach out to KECOBO, Kenya Copyrights Board.
Yeah.
It will allow you, it will show you how to. You will pay, of course, some royalties so that you can use someone's music or someone's work of art to advance yours for commercial purposes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And I think there's one of our esteemed viewers that is asking, what is the process of trademark registration?
Oh, trademark registration.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, I need to bring to our attention that the trademark registration is done by the Kenya Intellectual Property Institute along Wayaki Way. Now, what you're first supposed to do is to do a search of the logo or name that you want to protect.
Right.
It's called the search of distinctiveness, so that it is distinct from others.
Yeah.
Now, what they'll always tell you, it always takes 14 days. That's just a fortnight of working days, and then the search should be out. You're supposed to pay a fees. Once that has been done, they'll give you an advice whether what you want to protect is available. If it is available for use, no one else has protected that in this country, then you have space to now go ahead and launch or lodge what we call an application for registration.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll find that when they give you that advice, they'll tell you that we are giving you this on condition, this is available for registration on condition that you disclaim the exclusive use of a given letter or a given word, so that you're also not stopping other people from using what is available. For that reason, after that, you do an application for registration. Once an application for registration has been done, usually it takes around 2 months. By the way, the Office of the Attorney General is also involved. Once the registration has been done, 2 months, 60 days, it is out for an advertisement where it comes out in the KIPI publishes on a monthly basis a journal where all trademarked things and patents on that month, just during that month, are out there. Everyone can see, meaning they're giving it out to the public. Now, the purpose why they'll give you that 2 months period is to allow for opposition or objection. That this is mine, I've trademarked this elsewhere, or it looks like mine. But if that has been resolved, or there's none, there's no objection, then they'll register that and advertise that, and then it is available. You're given a certificate to own that.
Right. Yeah. And how can our viewer be able to learn about intellectual property rights so that we avoid flouting the law, we avoid also legal processes whereby we are found to have infringed on the rights of others? And also, if I want to venture into something, how am I able to know the intellectual property rights process?
Now, first of all, how are they supposed to know about it? One, you're supposed to seek out legal help. There are areas that we assume or we consider to be expensive. But when you look at the eventual cost, it's more expensive. So going out to a lawyer that deals with that is a very important thing. If you're not sure, you can also visit the KIPI website. It has a lot of information, a lot of information. I think it's just www.kipi, KIPI, and you get that website, and then it has a lot of information on that.
Yeah.
But there can be information,
Yeah.
but understanding that information
Yes.
requires consulting a legal profession. So that is where I invite people to come out, reach out to advocates, reach out to lawyers, reach out to law firms. They'll help you address those issues. Sorry for the second question. Sorry, the second part.
It's on the same, so that they can acquaint themselves with the necessary information.
Yes. And I think there's something, maybe before you give us your closing remarks,
Yes.
there's this thing that I noticed. There's a store, there's a shop area. Some people call it Dubois, some people Dubois, whatever.
Yeah.
But I've seen something happening whereby there's the original brand. Let's say even Hope, for example, just to give an example. Maybe Hope, let's say it's more of like a lotion. Hope is a lotion.
Yes.
But then when you go to Dubois, you see something looking like Hope exactly, but then it's written Hopper. So meaning that the person who is going to be looking at it would be thinking it is actually the product that they were going for, but it is just a change of a name, very slight change of the name, but then the product is branded and packaged as the original product. What can you say about this, and how can the original, manufacturers make sure that that is not happening?
Now, this is, touches on intellectual property, but not entirely.
Okay.
It goes into consumer protection and sometimes unfair competition, which are not particularly very close to the protection of rights, but protecting businesses from unfair competition. Now, unfair competition may therefore, you can launch, actually you can bring a claim on them. You can go to court, address that issue with the court, and have, that. But by the way, you have to be very sure that this product will lead to the confusion of the market. I started by speaking about margarines. There was actually, not to mention their names, but there was a real battle of an introduction of a margarine in the market that had the last name like the existing one, and then the color of the tin looking the same. But again, when these people went to court, what we saw is that they were arguing that the consumer would be confused about this as opposed to that. But the courts, I think, found that in the negative. And that's why I'm saying that you have to be very sure. Yeah, you need really to be very sure that this one is going to confuse. And also the information, because it's a requirement under Consumer Protection Act, the information on the product is usually printed out here. So that the information on these two brands, if it is different, then it may not portend that kind of confusion. But unfair competition in terms of trade could address that issue as opposed to trademarks. Trademarks actually looks out for that distinctiveness. What you're saying is that you're not going to use someone's, trademarks and copyright, you're not going to use someone's existing right.
Okay. And by the way, just to add, I have a friend who, she approached me and she was saying she was looking for a job, in the digital space. But then when she got there, it's like they gave her a task and told her, we need you to prepare a proposal for this particular thing. There's this project that we want to do. And how you prepare this proposal is what will determine whether or not we are going to hire you. But then she expressed that she was scared because she felt, how about, what if I do all this work and they actually use my ideas, but then they don't employ me? And she was confused. Should she have a contract, the NDA? What needs to be done to someone who maybe has gone to look for a job, and then they're asking them to do a task that is also tasking, but then it's somehow supposed to determine whether they're to be hired or not?
Again, I would say that we do not have a particular legal framework addressing that whole area. And you can see the lacunas that people use in law to advance their selfish desires. The whole thing here is that when you're looking for work, you're given space to come and try out something, and people want to use that we're interviewing you anyway.
Yeah.
And therefore, this is how an interview is carried out. Perhaps what I would suggest is that it is also an open area where our law enactment, institutions all ought to think and come up with a legal framework on how interviews are to be carried out.
Yes.
So that if somebody did all this work, it is not fair that you end up using the idea but dismissing them on the basis that they didn't pass the interview.
Yeah.
But it's an open area and a gray area in our law, and that is the reason why people are abusing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone is asking, how do I go about my idea inventing an app and finding out if there is another person with the same idea?
Just do a search. Yeah, you just go to Kipi, do that search. I remember someone, we're doing this for several people, by the way, all apps, yeah, medical, those kinds of things.
Okay.
So you just invent your thing, then you come to a legal practitioner, they'll help you out. They'll do the search for you, or you can go to Kipi, try out that they do a search for you, so that it's not an app that is infringing on another's. The idea here is that we are protecting those who have protected their rights. Yeah. So that you're not going to abuse others' existing works.
All right, amazing. And I think this would be a good time to hear your closing remarks on the same. Anything we could have left out, and also where people can find you, just in case they need advice on any issue pertaining the topic of today.
Okay. Now, I would speak to people who are registering companies, people who are starters, people who are starting schools. Schools start and become, it becomes a great school. And the moment it becomes great and it has performed very well, somebody runs away with the name.
Yeah.
Just tweets the name as she,
Yeah.
you tweak the name and you have another, So the whole idea here is that I'm speaking to those people, do not sleep on your rights.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to these people, young people who are coming out into the music industry, into the art industry, do not sleep on your rights.
Yeah.
If you have made something, if you have invented something, go forth and have it protected. Because if you do not protect it, someone will protect it for you.
Yeah.
And they'll carry home, they'll walk they'll smile all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
Reach out to intellectual property lawyers who will help you out. I work with Agimba and Associates Advocates. We are behind the Junction Mall off Ngong Road, along Riara Road, just before the Egyptian residency. Now, we are available to help anyone who would wish to come and do copywriting, or who would wish to come and do trademarking. So that you have all your rights with you, and then you can actually make an income out of that by selling out for purposes of making royalties. You can actually, something that people didn't know is that you can, your children could benefit from your work. Like you've seen, we're protecting it up to 50 years afterwards.
Yeah.
So if you protected your work very well, and someone wanted to use your work, you have seen songs that are being used on a given Jamhuri days, whatever, were done by people who are now who have now passed on. If you protected that, your estate, and estate I mean the people you left behind, can actually benefit from it as an income. Do not sleep. Do not sleep on your rights. Do not let your I would say your wealth just go untapped.
All right. Lawyer Clive, thank you so very much. That was intense. And of course, I know that we are now better equipped to ensure that in as far as intellectual property rights are concerned, we are up to speed and we will not be found on the wrong side of the law. I want to be reminded that my children can be able to use whatever I have copyrighted and ensured that it is legally mine for them to be able to benefit from the same now and forever.
Yes, and I think it's a wake-up call for us as Kenyans, because this is a place that we are sleeping on so much. You do your music, you write your book, but then you don't follow up to make sure that you've copyrighted and making sure that you have all the legal frameworks in line. So for all the inventors out there, for all people who are really good at coming up with awesome ideas, for the content creators, it is a wake-up call. And also to be careful not to use other people's products, because you never know if they have copyrighted, and you will be sued for something huge. And especially for content creators, as you had mentioned on YouTube, people have a tendency of using music that's not theirs, and they've actually monetized. Sometimes it's automatic, but I think it's important for people to be careful. And on YouTube, there's some non-copyrighted music that people can also use. So if you want to add a touch of creativity to your work, look for something that is not copyrighted. They are available for you, and you can use them to avoid being on the wrong side of the law.
All right. That's all we had time for this morning on Legal Monday Matters. Thank you so very much. Tomorrow, being Tuesday, we'll be having a day
At a time.
at a time.
Yes.
See you then. Bye for now.